All right, it is, what day is it? It's Saturday, July 21st. And I wanted to take a few minutes to talk with my better half about what happened yesterday in the world of weather. If you hear a voice in the background, that's my son. He is playing with a Shard backpack. We're not aiming for professional quality here. We're just aiming to simply debrief what was, in my opinion, a disappointing severe weather day. For those of you who need the context for this, yesterday morning at this time, checked SPC, that is the Storm Prediction Center in Norman, Oklahoma. They issued a moderate risk, which is a level 4 out of 5 for the northwest quadrant of Middle Tennessee, which included Nashville, and enhanced risk for all other counties in our viewing area, and that's level 3 out of 5. Slight on the eastern plateau border, but for the most part, most of Middle Tennessee was either an enhanced or a moderate risk. For my location, I was in a moderate risk zone, and that corresponds to the color red. Enhanced is a dark orange, and I know the color seems kind of irrelevant, but as I'll get back to later, colors actually play a part in this conversation we're about to have. I get all excited. You know, SPC is full of PhDs. They're smarty pants. They know way more than I do as an amateur who hope to be a professional in a few years. But so I give their voice a lot of credits. So anyway, long story short, the forecast was a complete flop. We did not get any severe storm warrant cells, and our viewing area outside the plateau counties, and if you're in Cookeville, Crossville, points in between, maybe north of Jamestown, I forget where all the cells hit. I know that Eastern Tennessee, the system overperformed. Eastern Kentucky, the system overperformed. The entire risk, all the risk zones should have been shifted 150 miles northeast of where they were initially placed. Hindsight's 2020, but what's also interesting is that SPC had a chance around 7 or 8 o'clock last night to downgrade the risks, and they chose not to. They maintained them, which was an interesting move. I do not understand that, because clearly the writing was on the wall at that point. The writing was on the wall as early as 2 or 3 in the afternoon, but it wasn't until 8 or 9 o'clock that local weather authorities, agencies, National Severe Weather on Twitter started to raise the white flag just a little bit, maybe half-mast, but anyway, so it was disappointing. Now, I have my better half on the line here. Say hi. Listen.
Hi.
Caden's in the background singing as well, so he's kind of a part of this. So, I don't want to excuse myself for tooting SPC's horn. Clearly, I bought in. As I told you yesterday, I drank the juice, became a wolf crier, I feel like. And before I forget, let me apologize for just perhaps my over-enthusiasm with the warning post. I probably should have used more words like probable, possible, potential. The revisions were made, but not until later in the yesterday evening. Some things looked very likely to happen, and it turns out they were very unlikely to happen. And really, well, you know what? I'll get to the point. There's some lessons and some takeaways that are already fresh in my mind as far as moving forward. But listen, when a forecast busts and nothing happens, like, what is the first thing that hits you? Are you mostly relieved, or are you kind of like bummed? You kind of wish that something would have happened.
Well, this is going to be a twofold answer, because yes, while I am the layman, I am the non-weather enthusiast. I am married to a weather enthusiast, and so over the course of our marriage, I have learned to definitely hope that forecasts come through on what they're looking to have. Me personally, if that weren't a factor, I really don't care. Like, unless you're like around Christmas and it's like you're potentially going to get snow for Christmas or something like that, then if it busts, it's like, oh man. But if it busts, I really don't care, unless maybe I had plans, like if we were having like a big get together at a park and we thought we were going to get washed out, so we cancel it. But again,
moments yesterday where, oh man, I cleaned out my garage, put in the car in the garage for no reason. I didn't water my plant, thinking it was going to rain, and it didn't get rain. So really, like, the inconveniences are pretty small when you think about it.
And if you think about it, really, for those people who like cleaned out their garage and did all that, good on you. You now have a clean garage.
Yeah,
so
for real.
Should something come up, you don't have to do that next time.
There's silver linings with busted forecasts, and I know, like, I think that when you talk about this issue, the humane has to weigh out above the science. The fact that we should be mostly relieved, or entirely relieved rather, that no one got hurt, there was no destruction, no damage of any kind. That should be at the top of the list. At the same time, even though science comes underneath the humane, we should always, in my opinion, aim to see what we could have done better. From the amateur all the way up to the PhDs at SBC. Because it wasn't a great forecast in terms of verification scores. Yes, the enhanced risk towards the plateau and up in Kentucky verified, so yes, but there should not have been a moderate risk issued for Nashville yesterday. Like, and the thing is like, this is not the first time it's happened. This is the second or third time this has happened this year, and there's a crying wolf factor in play, in my opinion.
See, okay, this is where I would probably disagree, because being someone who doesn't track the weather on my own, okay, and being someone who recognizes that meteorology is not a, quote, exact science. It's not like you're splitting atoms here. You know what I mean? Like, the weather is going to do what it's going to do. Different things can happen. Like, it is very much a you do the best you can kind of thing. And I think where I rest on this is I would have to say if it had verified, right? If that had happened and the people hadn't taken it seriously enough when they were making their forecasts, then everyone would have been mad that it didn't verify and that they, if there was a chance, you should have warned us that there was a chance. And so it's like, I feel like you're kind of screwed no matter if you are, if you over-predict or if you under-predict or whatever the case is. Well, but really, I'm just grateful there are people who are out there doing it. And again, it didn't impact my life. It didn't alter. No. It didn't change anything. So I would rather, because here's the thing, when I see a forecast, I don't take it as this is the, gospel truth. I can bet my life on this. What I see is this is something telling me I should factor this in while I'm making plans. I should factor this in while I'm determining the course of action I'm going to take. And then guess what? If I take action that would keep me safe and then it doesn't verify, who cares? And so I'm just saying, I feel like people get way off in the weeds, put way too much pressure on themselves and on other people to somehow operate this omniscient understanding of how the weather functions.
Yeah, and that's one of the hard parts for those who don't know weather to understand is whatever you know about it, it's way more complicated than you think. And yesterday was a really solid example of a forecast being issued based on the parameters of if storms were to fire. In other words, assuming that there was going to be enough lift to generate storms in the first place, if that could happen, they were going to explode based on the layers of the atmosphere 5,000 feet on up. The problem was that there was nothing that took place to get the storms up in the first place. So the initiator, the lifting mechanism was absent, and the verdict's still out on what exactly happened to cap that, because by 7, 8 o'clock, by all means, there should have been, based on the models and the data, everything was pointing to storms firing up during that time frame, and nothing happened. My initial theory is the winter storm equivalent of dry slotting, which, it just felt like I was waiting for snow in January and nothing happened because there was dry air intrusion that, sucked the momentum out of the system, and the infrared sounded like kind of confirmed that. That's the science, my initial thoughts on the science, why it didn't happen. But I know that there's a more practical side to this, and my concern is people who think they're wrong again, and I'm worried about the tornado warning that happens that people don't take seriously and ends up killing a lot of people, like it did 20 years, or it didn't kill a lot of, it injured a lot of people 20 years ago.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you here. though, and this is where I think meteorologists, or people who are into meteorology, you do what you do, and as an added service, you are trying to help people out. You know more. You as an amateur meteorologist know more than most people who aren't in any way associated with meteorology. Way more. Professional meteorologists know even more than that. So guess what? General public, we have to understand that weather, again, is not an exact science. And the fact that we even have come to a point where we can make predictions, educated guesses, all those kind of things that help save people, it's on them, it's on us as people who are receiving the information, what we do with that information. There's got to be personal responsibility. Because guess what? Again, if the Mets don't say something and for some reason something flares up, then it's on them because they didn't say anything.
Well, that's the worst. That's worst case scenario.
But my whole point is they are operating in a job where they have that pressure on them. So guess what? If for some reason meteorologists are saying, hey, this is what we're seeing could happen in the future, guess what? General public, our response to that should be, oh, I should take this under advisement as I'm making decisions, whether or not it pans out. Because if there is here's the thing, if there is a reason for us to assume, like, okay, not trying to go, and you can edit this out if I'm going into an area where I shouldn't go into, okay, but over the past how many years, we've seen a huge uptick in, like, terrorist activity all over the world, right? And so if there was a way for us to even potentially predict that kind of stuff, like if they're, like, whether it's based on like warnings or threats or anything like that, guess what? If I hear that somewhere I'm going, there's it's on a list for a potential attack or whatever, and they have intelligence that makes them think that it could be an option, because that could be is now in play, I'm going to factor that into my choice if I'm going to that place, because that's just common sense. Guess what? If there's no attack that happens, great, there was no attack. Yeah, maybe I missed a concert, or yeah, maybe I missed, an event of some sort. Boo. But guess what? I wouldn't have been saying boo if it happened. I would have been like, man, I'm glad I listened. So again, that is where personal responsibility comes in. People like meteorologists take the data, they interpret it as best as they can, they say, here it is, please be safe, and then we go, okay, what am I going to do with this information?
Yeah. No, that's a fair point. And
FYI, I'd be passionate about this even if Cameron wasn't into meteorology.
Right.
I'm big on personal responsibility.
Well, there's multiple ways to tune an audience out, and obviously the greatest of evils would be to not say anything at all. But yeah, as mentioned, I mean, the crying wolf element is a concern.
It's not crying wolf. It's not crying wolf. I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off there.
It's okay.
To me, crying wolf is not like, it's messing around with people. Like, when you look at that original story, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, he didn't really think there was a wolf. He just thought it was funny to run around going, wolf, wolf, wolf. Okay, there wasn't data that he was backing up his wolf cries with.
And that is the difference here. There was plenty of data, I think, though, that, and this comes into one of the lessons I've taken away. Like, I have to look at both sides of the storm equation and do it in better measure next time. Like, in this case, I saw moderate risk posted by SPC and just automatically got giddy and took several words for it. I think a lot of people did. Who are we to contradict the smartest minds on the subject in our country, maybe in the world? At the same time, it's I think if I would have drilled down further, I might have seen some yellow flags potentially that would have said storms are going to have a hard time firing up in the first place. Once they get, if even just a little shower were to pop up, that would have exploded. That actually happened. We had a few rogue showers in Middle Tennessee that were of little significance that became supercells in eastern Tennessee, and people are not talking about it. Most of the population is centered in Davidson and Williamson County. They got nothing. So yeah, there's some WTCs or WTHs going out, but you're right. I can't put too much upon myself. I'm certainly not upset with the Mets. They did their job. I think really this just comes down to just honest disappointment that there wasn't even just a little something that verified within the moderate and bordered enhanced risks. So, you live and learn, and we're going to learn from this. I really hope that there's the next time a moderate risk is issued, that it verifies, because, like I said, we're 0 for 2 or 0 for 3 this year, and that's, I'm concerned for my particular part of the state and country. But
well, this is what I'm going to say to all you meteorologist people out there. As a general public, okay, do what you do. That is why you do what you do. You know more, and we defer to that. And guess what? Again, I would much rather have the warning and nothing pan out than no warning, because people are afraid that people will not, listen, and then something bad go wrong.
yeah,
That's just me. General public, just putting this out there. I love y'all. I'm part of y'all. But we got to recognize there is personal responsibility. You are being meteorology and weather forecasts are a tool that are given to us by people who have a better understanding of why the weather does what it does. They are not God. They cannot give you a definitive answer. It is your responsibility what you do with that information.
yep,
Plain and simple. So you know what kind of risks you're willing to take. And so if you're like, I don't care if my, like me yesterday, Cameron's like, we need to clean out the garage in case, we need to pull the van in there in case of big hail. And I'm sitting there going, do I really care about big hail? I don't know. But that was me, you know what I mean? And that.
Well, and this will be the last point I talk about, because there was a 30 to 40% chance, or so, I think maybe we'll just say 30% chance of hail, and it was actually hatched, which meant that there could have been a chance for the 2-inch plus variety, the golf ball sized hail. And so that's, once I realized that language was coming from SPC, I'm like, that's when I told Lisa, hey, we need to get at least one of the cars inside the garage, and I have no problem cleaning it now.
And for the record, our garage isn't nasty. Our garage is just tiny, and so if you try to get the van in even without anything on the sides, you're lucky if you can get it all the way in. It's just it's a very little compact one-car garage.
But the main takeaway with this point is, even in enhanced and moderate risks, the probabilities are not in your favor. I mean, with tornadoes, you're talking 2, 5, 10% grids. On hail, it's 15, 30, 45. With winds, same thing. You got 15, 30, 45. Only in the high, the exceptionally rare, like you're talking about 4 or 5 a year for the entire country. Only in the high risk, that's 5 out of 5, that's 1 grade above moderate, will you see 60% zones established, and that becomes likely. And those probabilities are centered on X severe weather criteria happening within 25 miles of you or a given point. So 30 to 45 though, when you are in the 45 anything, you pretty much in your mind go 1 and 2. There's a coin flip chance that this could happen within 25 miles, and that's too close for comfort. It's basically in your county, essentially. So I think for those who are cleaning their garages and getting their cars in and trying to beat the potential of hail, that's fine. The thing that I don't want people like me, authorities, local weather authorities, Mets, I don't want them to hide behind the math. The math is built into these risk zones to where the odds of course are always greater that nothing will happen. Again, outside the rare high risk zone, the odds are built in. But I don't feel like people should hide behind the math. Those who are issuing, from those issuing the warnings to those, sounding the alert. We should not hide behind the math if nothing happens. We should be thankful nothing happens, but somewhere, somehow, we got to improve the science so that, it's just so that people could take the threats more seriously. But you're right. At the same time, I understand where you're coming from, Lisa, in the sense that I think most people are going to pay attention to when they get storm alerts on their phones, and if they if people say pay attention to the skies, I think they're going to do that. And if you canceled your plans, all we can do is say we're sorry, we'll try to do better next time. I don't know what else to say. So, but really, that kind of concludes matters on this on the road conversation. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Lisa for being willing to chime in with her thoughts. And
Always.
yes, and hopefully next time, you know what this means? That means next time we get like in a slight risk, something bad's going to happen. Like a smaller defined threat, like level 2 out of 5, we probably will get something then. Who knows? Anywho, thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the fry, as we always do. Peace.